Indigo Angel is a extraterrestrial contactee who began seeing angels and extraterrestrials at age 3. She's had past life memories on life on other planets as well as Lemuria. She's the author of How to Read Celestial Akashic Starseed Origins, and she's here to talk about her contact experiences and the new Earth.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Welcome to Exopolitics Today, Indigo.
Hi, Dr. Michael Salla. I'm so excited to be here. I love your work and I love everything that you do. And I'm just excited to come and talk with you and talk to your exopolitical family.
Well, you have a very interesting background, and I know it began very early for you. So, why don't you just describe what happened to you at that age of 3 that really began to open you up to this greater reality around us?
Well, as I think many incarnating indigo souls, later finding out that I was an indigo, I was an HSP, a highly sensitive person. So from a child, I had all the sensitivities that you could possibly imagine emotionally, energetically, spiritually. I was empath. If somebody was sick around me, I could feel their sickness. If my grandma was sick, I would take on her sickness. I mean, I was overstimulated with oversensitivities. I was an emotional child, all of these things, where people would say to you, you're too sensitive. You're too sensitive. All of this. I would get that all the time. And so I was always fighting that. I so that was just at the basis of all of it. But from the beginning, yeah, I had contact where I would see angelic presences that would come forward, and I would communicate with them. Some of them, um, I would also have experiences where I would see and feel some things that did not feel so good as well. And so I was also scared a lot as a child. Um, I was afraid all the time. I mean, I was the kid that could not sleep in the dark. I would run down the hallway. I thought somebody was going to grab me and chase me and get me, like all these things. Like I felt everything around me. But it wasn't until I was around 5, 6, 7 that I started to have a lot of things happen that were just more unexplainable things that would occur. Memories that started to just recently actually get more returned to me now, where I would have. Apparently, I was a sleepwalker. So I took this as abduction actually. Now that I'm getting my memories back, but I was a sleepwalker, so I would wake up in random places. I would wake up flipped around and upside down on the bed. But there was a couple times that I woke up in places that were just like, there's no way. There's no way. How did I get here? Some of those places would be like in the basement in a closet, um, outside on the patio. Why am I waking up randomly in these places? So I had experiences around that time where I became more and more aware of beings watching me, beings from off planet watching me. I remember being a little girl and I would take my toys out into the yard and I would put on performances for the people that were in the sky because I knew they were watching me and I needed to do something to entertain these, intelligences. Basically, this is what I thought, anyways. So, as a child, so I was very active in my interaction, so to speak. I think I had a lot of memory blockages placed though as to what was actually happening to me or what was actually occurring when I would have the sleepwalking incidences that would happen. I don't know specifically what was happening to my consciousness. I only know later, according to my ascension and my awakening process, as I started to come to realize as more of my carbon broke down in my body, because I still think I had a lot of blockages as a child that didn't allow me to basically pierce the veils of full communication. So that happened later in life, basically. But you always come back to those memories because when you're communicating with angelics, ultra terrestrials, extraterrestrials, God source intelligence, I just call it the organic intelligence field now. I kind of try not to separate too much of it, but you start to understand those memories as to what happened as a child and how those integrate into now and what you're connecting and what you're communicating with now, essentially. I do feel from the beginning that I was always connecting within the guardian races and the guardian nations. And my original starseed origins and inheritance that ultimately came from multiple systems as I am hybridized. I'm a hybridized incarnate with multiple starseed factions and races that I've inherited. Some of those being the Hydra starseed system, Cygnus, Lyra, Syrian, there's a bag, Orion as well. And so that I came to interpret through a much deeper awakening that occurred in 2013 was really when it started to kick off at a more level that couldn't be denied. Let's just put it this way. There was no kind of going back to anything that was normal. But you know what? Nothing ever was normal.
Mm. Now, these early experiences you had with angelic beings, I can imagine that at age 3, there was a kind of purity and innocence that made you open up to these beings, and you began having those experiences. And as you said, that there are others watching, and they saw that you're capable of making those connections. And some of those beings that were watching weren't benevolent, and
Mhm.
so that began these, I mean, you mentioned the abductions, and how there was evidence of that in terms of you waking up in different places. So and I found that to be a pattern that many people are who do come in with that kind of background, past lives on other worlds, or maybe connections with these kind of angelic realms, that they become targets. So, yeah, do you want to kind of talk a little bit about the angelic realm? What is that? Because often people associate angels with extraterrestrials, but I mean, there is a difference. So, do you want to explain that difference?
Sure, let me tune into that a little bit. Well, I do see the angelic realms as the celestial realms. I see the angelic entrance points and the stairway to heaven being accessed at the first celestial firmament. So a lot of the angelics are ultra terrestrials and extraterrestrials, but there are many different dimensions and coexistence that operates within that. Um, Yeah, so I you could say that they are kind of one and the same in some sense, but there's different bases of the intelligence field in which it consciously communicates with you. So you have kind of on the celestial level, there's a radial level of communication where you're just kind of communicating directly with radial intelligence that can section off into angelic consciousness and also extraterrestrial consciousness, whether it's interdimensional or outer dimensional. Okay, so there's like that level of it, and then there's also um then you can also access remotely dimensions and realms and worlds and according to the planetary sphere and the planetary domain as that within that as well. And then within those domains, you can access extraterrestrial intelligence and you can communicate with beings that are existing within those domains. But they still might be connected to angelic realms or angelic consciousness or angelic orders. Um, how I really see it is everything, whether it's angelic, extraterrestrial, ultra terrestrial, it's in the domain of the organic intelligence field. Technically everything is kind of birthed through that. So source, the divine, God, the eternal light source fields, the creator, divine mother, father, God consciousness, divine feminine, divine masculine, Christ, whatever that is, like it all kind of falls in and through the fabric of that, and everything kind of communicates in and through that, just that there is kind of a ladder. so to speak, or a cap in expression or intellectual abilities according to the dimensional framework that those intelligences embody through, if that kind of makes sense. So yeah, you could tap into like the eighth dimensional field and connect with beings, from certain systems that would be communicating at the eighth dimensional level. Planetarily speaking, I'm picking up on the Orion system as we tune into this. Like the Orion beings would come through. I think they're coming through right now. But it's they would kind of come through the eighth gate systems on the planet, and they also communicate through stargate networks of consciousness in the planetary grid and field and sphere as well. So there's many layers to this. It can be a little confusing, right? I think it's all about how one can interdimensionally navigate their own psychic depth perception, right? So we all kind of have frameworks in which each individual consciousness is built upon in terms of the blueprint of how they can interpret that interdimensional connection. So for me, it's through the planetary body. That's how I do a lot of my psychic reading and remote reading is through planetary consciousness, geometry, remote viewing. I access everything on this earth first, and then I go kind of off world or off planet, so to speak, to be able to see or communicate. Um,
Let me ask you something, and this concerns the seraphim. You've mentioned the seraphim, and that you have some connection to them, and also you mentioned the guardian being a guardian representative.
mhm.
So, what are the seraphim? How are they different to archangels? And what is a guardian representative?
So the seraphim are considered the burning ones. And they are considered some of the closest ones to God, basically. They're the angelics that are closest to communication with, the fire of God, the transformative. They're the fire angels, basically. They're kind of like a serpent dragon consciousness that they're transdimensional. They are through the white ray and the white lineages on this earth. They were a part of the angelic soul races that initially came in uh, as guardian race soul lines that embodied through celestial factions, such as the Pleiadians, such as the Hydra systems, such as the Cygnusian systems. They came through other race lines to help develop the soul spirit body of humanity. So they are connected through a lot of the primordial race lines that incarnated on the planet, such as like the serpent cults and um, the activation of the 24th chromosome on the planet, which goes back to Lemuria and Tamu. So they have a lot to do with the original angelic soul human body. Okay, but they're also very much within working within the evolution of the new earth, right? They're here to kind of help the progress of these things, the evolution of new humanity, the new earth soul races, the crystal children that are coming in. It's connected to all of this, but they do work within the intuition, okay, vision, clarity, bringing forth uh, vision holder quests to help us build new earth. So they're working within the inner earth kingdoms. The seraphim soul lines are connected to the inner earth crystal cities, the seraphim light cities inside of the earth. And so a lot of their mission here for humanity is to help us birth the golden light cities to come into the future new earth timelines. Their agendas are solely to help evolve the soul angelic body of humanity. But they have also been entangled to many things that are also fallen as well. A lot of hijacking that has also occurred on this. So within the human domain and the human world, they are limited in some perception, so to speak, but it doesn't, block their outreach of how things are still occurring within the angelic kingdom of the planet.
Well, you mentioned something very interesting there, that the Seraphim are connected to these inner Earth crystal cities. I know I've read the work of Radu Cinema, and he talks about Shambhala as being very close to the core of the Earth. And as you go deeper into the Earth rises in density. That it's not what the scientists say, and that Shambhala is kind of like what you described, like the most highly evolved of the inner Earth cities. That there are many inner Earth cities at different density levels as you go deeper and deeper. But as you approach the kind of inner sun, and that there's a sun in the middle, around a kind of black hole. That's a very highly evolved area, and only highly evolved beings are there. And the city of Shambhala is sounds very similar to what you were describing. So I don't know, have you come across that kind of information?
Yes, yes. I've accessed Chaos, the inner Earth cities. Okay. I am working towards gaining more access to that, because there are deeper levels of initiation that do have to happen and occur within the body for you to be able to get more access. So it is a process of things shifting within the crystals of the body, within the consciousness, and also because what is held there isn't privy to just anybody. Like, you can't just, get access to that. It's a special thing that happens and occurs. So um there are inner Earth gate site Q points on the planet that allow you to access that, Hawaii being one of them. Kauai, Hawaii is an inner Earth gate access point. It's a vortex. Mount Shasta, um, the Himalayas and Tibet. There's these special places that you can energetically begin to, see into that. You kind of go through a process of accessing, if you're familiar with Asha Nadine's work, the Halls of Amenti, but you kind of go deeper into gaining deeper depth of records according to the planetary Akashic records. There's many layers to this. So it's not like you just go drop into the inner Earth sun or into the crystal city. There's like many ethereal layers of information that kind of take you down and through the Earth templating and what's connected to the building processes of this. A lot of the inner Earth cities and the crystal cities, like this picture that you have up in front, are encoded to the new Earth crystal templating, the Venusian templates. It all comes from Venus. So Venus is, and I just speak with this with certainty because it's just stuff that I've seen. I've just seen it. I've just written about it. So I speak at it from my own place of vision. So if I'm right or if I'm wrong, it's all up for interpretation. For some people, I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. It's whatever, but it's something that specifically with this, I've seen is connected to Venus, and it has to do with our planetary beginnings and how Earth and Venus were once one planet. They were once one cellular structure that actually split off. And Venus encoded the inner Earth crystal new Earth body. Basically, inner Earth is future Earth. So everything in terms of these crystal cities, this is what our future will be in new Earth as our evolution occurs. What is at the bottom will rise up to the top. So what is there is what we will be in the future. And so this is why everything comes through us, because it's coming up from the inner Earth. It's coming up through the soles of our feet up into our consciousness as the consciousness expands and rises from within the Earth's race morphogenetic field, because there's many different mechanics inside of the planet that are holding and attaining the pockets of this information to be released in certain cycles, evolutionary cycles, and ascension cycles within the planet.
So this is kind of like an application of Hermetic law, where as within, so without. And so within the planet Earth, you have these layers, these deeper layers, the inner Earth cities, the crystal cities of Shambhala and Telos. And as the Earth evolves, as humanity evolve, uh, all this starts to come to the fore. And of course, we as individuals, many who are watching this, we're at different points in this journey of awakening, but many can resonate to what you're saying because it feels yeah, absolutely true because of the things that we are experiencing now.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's all within the levels of awakening and which is being built in layers in humanity and within the planet for our dynamic evolution process that's occurring. We're going to be going through a massive terra reformation that's only just begun. And so we are taking on roles at this time as individuals, as light workers, and as starseeds, and as awakening souls, and as conspiracy theorists. They're all technically under the same. We're coming back to the apex, right? We're all coming back into unity, as truth merges back into itself, and as we begin to see ourselves as our true spiritual essence, as we begin to function more according to our abilities of the future, which is through thought based mind awareness of thoughts create our reality, and we will begin to sync with the collective mind and the awareness around that, that everyone, this will become more of like a knowing, that everyone will become very conscious and aware that all of our thoughts collectively create our future, create our reality. So that is what is breaking through our consciousness, is for us to learn how to manifest in unity, learn how to think in unity. And so we're all taking our what appears to be separated roles within the building processes of what we're becoming, but these processes are all necessary because we all actually do have to separate to create that. And then we come back together again because each part takes a different level of intellect, codes, body initiation, race line development according to our genetics and our soul inheritance. And so we are together systematically, in which we can't see the compartmentalization. But within that, we are building the framework for the new earth designs to manifest. And so it's actually an exciting time to be on Earth. I think it's hard for a lot of people to see that right now because there's so much crazy stuff going on. And boy, do we have so much to heal on this planet. I mean, my gosh, like the warfare between the Dracos and the Zeta Regalians and the Anunnaki, and just like that's just, it's held in a vault in the planet, in the vault of Orion, and it's on replay. And so we still haven't got past the fall of Atlantis. We have not got past that. So until we can really clear and heal, globally, truly extract and release all the generational inherited karma from that, um, we will be kind of working for some time to clear out the inner earth war codes, right? Because we talk about what's inside of the planet, what's stuck in the akashic records of the planet. It's war. It's collective war, World War One, World War Two, Vietnam, civil wars, everything that has happened, mass human abduction and experimentation programs, euthanasia programs. It's all locked in a vault that is very hard for collective humanity to shift and transmute, even through death and rebirth cycles. So as people are going through death and rebirth, and this is why the angelic realms are very important. The angelic realms are they are designed to help us with transmutation of life and death processes. The heavenly realms, the angels, that's what they do. Like they come in and life review in the afterlife, and they help people to interpret not only our personal experiences and what we had when we incarnated and when we went through the life cycle, but we also have to interpret the collective war. And if we can't do that in our life and death processes and cycles, we get sent back in through the sixth realm of heaven. It's basically like a recycling. Uh, it's a recycling heavenly realm where we come back and we have to repeat. So that's kind of the biggest crux that I see for humanity at this time.
Well, the history part is something that a lot of people have to kind of like appreciate better. And I know you have some things to say about Lemuria, and you just mentioned Atlantis. So, what is it about the history of Lemuria and Atlantis that is important for us to understand now to make this transmutation of the planet?
Well, I know there's a lot of people who speak about Lemuria returning. And Atlantis returning. But the things that I've gotten in my visions and things that I've channeled is that that is never gonna actually come back the way we think it is. Like, that is truly kind of in the past, and what's gonna come forward is a new Earth. Like, the Earth is actually rebirthing herself into a new identity. Okay, and so we will take things from Lemuria and from the motherlands of Mu. We will take things from Atlantis, but we will ultimately take it and rebuild an entirely new civilization. So it's kind of like who's that guy? The guy that took all of the LSD, Terrence McKenna. He talks about an archaic revival. Okay, that we have to call upon the revival of our ancient antiquity, and I think that's true to some degree. We have to kind of call upon certain things to reintegrate. Um, to build the new earth, but it's like we also do have to accept and heal what is of the past. So there is a lot of betrayal wounds that have happened from the motherlands of Mu, from Lemuria, from Atlantis. And so where I think the greatest focus for us at this time is to really tune into the war trigger events that occurred, the Holocaust, the genocides, and we have to take a lot of unconditional love, unconditional compassion, unconditional forgiveness, unconditional acceptance. And we have to help work to evolve even the intruder race lines on this planet, which is very hard for us to do because, for one, humans go around walking around on this planet pointing the blame everywhere. Like, they're the blame, they're the blame. We don't take a lot of accountability as a human species for the things that have occurred, but everything that is theirs is also ours. And so until we can ultimately own, accept, heal, cleanse, and be at peace and truly walk and move within a new pathway, okay, bringing in the ancient wisdoms, bringing in the ancient ancestral like wisdom within all of that. But we have to learn how to kind of be at peace with what has occurred in order to embrace the new. So
One of the things about Atlantis is that what we know from historical texts, and Plato describes the final days of Atlantis as a period when the Atlanteans began to aggressively attack other countries or other parts of the world. So they were involved in these wars of aggression. Edgar Casey corroborated that in his channeled information. And so now, in the present day, we seem to be going through something very, very similar. We see all these wars around us, and even right now, as we're speaking, there's the possibility of a Middle East war just breaking out and America being sucked into that. So, yeah, and I guess this is where history is repeating itself. So, we have enough people learned the lessons? Have enough people awakened to these historical memories and done the necessary cleansing to stop that repetition of history?
no, I do not think so. I think we have to get to a like a 10% tipping point of awakening. And when we're talking awakening, we're talking like each individual soul is able to recall their collection of these timelines, recall their inheritance of these timelines, recall the wars, the genocides, the Holocaust. We have to integrate our genetic codes and our cellular memory from these timelines, and we have to individually work to heal and clear to transcend it, right? So it's like very much this individual process as it is a collective process, but I think we are not at the tipping point. I think we have to get to like a 10% tipping point to shift it ultimately, so to speak. Um, Also, the problem is that we're still very much tied to the Orion system. We have, as humanity, we haven't accepted our beginnings as a human species. We can't even agree upon it. So that poses a dangerous threat as well, right? Is because if we can't really, in terms of new Earth, we don't have to worry about these things. I think we can see it as humans, like we see it, right? We see it, like we see where all of it is, but we don't have the messages I've been getting from source, from God, the eternal, like all this, it's that we don't have to worry because as the planet evolves in a sense, that these records will be automatically released in the next 2,000 years. Okay, going into 12,000 CE, Common Era. We'll go through radical transformation that human origins and records, the vault of Orion will eventually be unlocked, because this is where a lot of human origins began. This is all the wars that we see, Gaza and Israel, the conflicts of Ukraine and Russia, uh, even the La Cucaracha, everything that happened in 2020, that reincited persecution wounds from World War II. That's basically what happened. Everybody went into fear because guess what? We don't trust humanity. The deepest levels of evil, we know that they run massive euthanasia programs on the planet, right? That come through the Zeta Regalians, the Draco Alpha Reptilians, the Orions, the Nordics, right? The Nordics brought a lot of that in, the euthanasia programs. So we remember that. That's why it incites fear, actually. That's why we resent the control matrices that be, because they're all connected up to the hive mind of the Zeta control matrix that's in the Rigel and the Orion system. We have to kind of go back, I feel, to our galactic origins, our planetary warfare history. We have to learn how to integrate that. We have to learn to see ourselves as not just human beings that are on a planet, but that we are a part of the planetary consciousness mind. Okay, that will all be upgraded into our intellect in the future as well. There's going to be things that come forward called the cathedrals of learning, and these will come after the golden light cities manifest. But there will be learning centers and hubs that actually manifest in certain areas of the world, that people can go to these cathedrals, and their intellect will be upgraded to the planetary intellect. In terms of our planetary history, it'll all be brought into them, and so that understanding will be downloaded. You know, when you first go through your awakening, how you're like going through all this stuff in your life, you're going walking through the dark night of the soul, and you hold a crystal for 5 seconds, and you get downloaded with all like the wisdom and information that basically aids your soul. Like you're like, oh, this makes sense. You get like a holodeck of records that everything that's occurred in your life, and this makes sense, and that makes sense, and this makes sense. That's going to happen on a planetary level. It's going to happen on a worldwide level, but it's happening in phases, it's happening in processes. Yeah, these massive wars between these brotherhood bloodlines, okay, the gray Zeta Regalians versus the Nordic Draconian Alpha White Draco lines, um, all of it's embedded into our Willy Wonka system. It's yeah, I could get into this. I could I could get in. This is a whole
Let's
can.
there's a lot there, so why don't we try and unpack it a little bit more? Now, you talk about the records of human origins and the role of ET races. So you want to explain exactly what you know about human origins in terms of these different races, and what how that has influenced humanity as it currently exists.
Yeah. Well, these ET races have been warring over it for a very, very long time, going back thousands and thousands of years. I mean, this is what they warred over in Lemuria. I mean, this is what the Lemurian Holocaust was about 200,000 years ago. It this Oh, let's put it this way. I don't have all the answers when it comes to this, but I can tell you what I do know. Okay? Um Humanity's existence has, whether we like it or not, it's come through experimentation programs, abduction programs, forced breeder programs, and hybridization programs. And the stories of these scientists or these master geneticists um, go really far back in our history. I personally believe going back to the Orion system. And that this is where a lot of the abduction programs ultimately began, which happened along particular alien abduction race lines, one being the Zetas, one being the Alpha Draco Regalians, and also the Greys. But they operate under factions. There's like an overlord system, a command system that operates there as well. But the Zetas mixed the hybrid DNA with a race line called the Zionites. The Zionites tie in here on Earth, going back to Tara, which was the original Earth. Prior to this was like 70 Earth Tara. They mixed a race line called Zionites in with the Zeta hybrids. Okay, and this was connected to a lot of the Hebraic bloodlines. So this ties back. So when we talk about Zionites and you think about Zionist, they're connected. There's a connectant. It was off world. It was pre-Earth design, genetic design before we even came to this planet. Okay, and they brought a lot of these races. So I personally feel that a lot of the human origins comes back to alien abduction, experimentation, and hybridization programs, and that this had a lot to do with the beginning of our origins here. And I know that's a crazy concept to kind of take in, because even as I just say it, I can barely take it in. I take a deep breath when I say this, right? Because it's like it takes a lot from my solar plexus to even talk about this, because it's very heavy to think that that is how or where we got here. But it's it's come through a long line of force breeding and trying to create master race lines that can come in, and a lot of them here on Earth were bred for war. They were bred to be war race lines. So the original Hebraic bloodline, I don't think these were war race lines, but there was hybridization and force breeder programs that came in within that, and that happened at the fall of man. That happened at our genesis. That happened with Adam and Eve. Eve was initially taken right out of the gate to a forced breeder program, and she birthed Cain and Abel from a forced breeder program and from a hybridization program in which she birthed Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel were a representation of the fratricide and of the predatorial race line and war line that was essentially born on this planet. This does go back to the motherlands of Mu. So it was all brought here by these particular alien races, basically.
All right. Well, let's talk about those kind of forced breeder programs, because another way that I've heard it explained is that these are genetic experiments that different extraterrestrial races have been conducting, and that there are races that come from other galaxies, and the literature refers to about 24 of these, and that they come from other galaxies and they come here, and that they see different worlds like our planet with particular lineages and genetics, and then they just kind of see how that all plays out. So I mean, a forced
Yeah.
breeder program versus a genetic experiment, is it just are we talking apples and oranges, or is it are we talking about the same thing?
They're kind of the same thing. Yeah. The hybridization program is it is a force breeder program, basically. Some of the force breeder programs here that were initially known was, yeah, Adam and Eve. You have the Nephilim. That was a force breeder program when the angels descended from heavens and mated with Earth females, which were the Irish, mostly the Irish race lines. Okay, and so they were the females on Earth that were subjugated, and these were beings from Mu. These beings descended from Mu, the red-haired beings. They were enslaved in a forced breeder program and forced to basically birth Nephilim, and then also before that, they were forced bred to Anunnaki bloodline. So yeah, they are kind of apples and oranges because that's what they do. They bring in studs from the particular race line in which they want to have a experimentation, and then they run the forest breeder program to bring in that race line. They also do it through implants as well. So they install, this has to do with the genetic programming. So they can install them with implants also that create that tracker tag. So it's something that's just embedded in the race as it bursts itself. So the race line bursts itself into with the tracker tags, and then they basically um, send the signals. So some of them are like patriarchy, domination, and control. There's like a crown signal. It ties into the pineal and also down to the prostate for like studs who would be taken for the hybridization or the forced breeder program. And then the females, they put clamps on their ovaries and their womb basically as tracker tag to know that that female is of a forced breeder program that they can utilize her ovum and her womb, and they can run her through the program to basically birth that race line. So it was mostly the Irish women, and also the West African women, like in Mali and things like this. All of the women that were taken in the Atlantic slave trade, they were all a part of this. Off planet though, it's been happening. So all of this came to the planet because it was already happening in Lyra, and it was already happening in Orion before it ever happened on this planet. So all the Draco lines, the Zeta Regalia, all the negative predatorial races, ET races, not the Guardian races. Okay. The Guardian races have gone through hybridation trauma. It's kind of like the victim victimizer program, but on the galactic level. The Guardian races aren't predatorial when it comes to that, but they have been mostly victimized by it. Most of the, yeah.
Do you want to explain exactly who are the guardian races? I think you mentioned the Pleiadians as an example of them. So, yeah, I mean, how do you identify a guardian race, and what are their kind of typical behaviors?
So guardian races would be service to others. Invader races would be service to self. Basically, their service to their self and to their own resources. Guardian nations are more angelic embodied races and soul lines that are here to serve the evolution and the spiritual evolution of humanity. They're for us here on the planet. Yeah, Pleiadians would be there's several of them. There's several of them. There's the mainstream ones that we've heard about that have taken guardian contracts and coalitions to serve on a public level. Those are the Syrians, the Pleiadians, the Lyrans, the Orions, the Arcturians, and the Andromedans, right? Because really the Andromedans are very significant because a lot of the fall happened when we were separated from Andromeda. And this is when the Lyran Wars even began in the first place. So that fall occurred. We separated from Andromeda. That gate system and Stargate shut down. So we didn't have access to ascending worlds anymore because Andromeda is ascending. So we've been trying to make that connection, and this is a lot of what the Guardian races have came in to do is also try to repair the Stargate to the Andromedan system through the Amareya passageways, through the Aurora passageways, through the Ark of the Covenant. There's a lot of ways in which we're rebuilding that construct, but we don't also have to worry about it because the new Earth, we're predicted to collide with it anyways. So there's things we don't have to worry about, but we still do because that's what we do as humans, right? But there's so much to this, right? Uh
Kind of like look at this idea of stargates. Now, you mentioned Ashania Dean, and I remember coming across her work close to 20 years ago, and it was fascinating then. It's still very interesting. I mean, there's some controversial elements in there, but I just wanted to kind of get your take on her idea that there's this planetary grid system of portals and stargates, and that you have um, kind of different races. You mentioned the guardian races. You also mentioned the service to self races, and that these races, these extraterrestrial races, whether they're guardians, whether they're service to self, oppressor types, that they are in this constant battle for control of these stargates and these portals all over the planet. So, yeah, you want to talk about the planetary grid system and the stargates and this kind of battle. No, it's the other slide, Jazz, the stargates slide. So, if you want to just talk about the stargates.
well, yeah, it's basically like the Earth's playground. It's a very complex system, that is for sure. It's a biosphere network within itself. It's a design within itself in which all like planetary akashic records and history and intelligence field exist within the planetary grid. It's a living grid. It's a spiritually living conscious grid network that connects through coordinates. So this one here that you have up here, this might be like the Curie system. There's electromagnetic models that you put up. This is an electromagnetic model. So this is basically putting axial points and tonal lines together at power centers in which, each of these points could be considered a vortice or a stargate in itself. So there's multiple different ones of these according to different geometries, different timelines, different densities, different dimensions, where they exist within the Earth's field, inner Earth, outer Earth, inner mantle, atmospheric, structural. They are all coinciding, different intelligent networks that basically run intelligence, humanity's intelligence through them. Some of them are organic, and they are carrying the currents of the biospiritual evolution of humanity within them. Some of them are artificial, okay, and they're hijacked, and they've been taken over by the negative forces and the dark ETs as well, and they're running dystopian Armageddon codes. They're running static electricity. They're running inversion codes. They're running fallen realms and worlds and systems. They're running frequency fences and planetary weapons through them. So it's a jungle gym, basically. It's a jungle gym that the interdimensionals operate in and through. This is how they actually get on and into the planet themselves, depending on, interdimensionally, which Stargate they're coming through, how they're coming through. Um, Basically, the Stargates connect into the race morphogenetic field of the planet. Stargates are technically like ET birthing zones. I mean, like, the races come through the Stargates. It's the intelligence field. It's basically coming through. So it disperses consciousness, DNA, proteins, chromosomes according to land codes, according to what land areas are going to accept that consciousness or not accept that contract. And so it's the living network, it's the living grid of intelligence, and it also functions within our body as well. All of these grids that you see on the planet, it's also part of our own makeup. So all you have to really do is tune into your own inner grid structures and networks, and you biosynthesize with the planetary's intelligence field, and you become it. You basically become it because you're just basically a walking antennae to this information, anyways. So you just sync up to it, basically, and you can activate to Stargate codes, activate to the ley lines, activate to the information that it's holding in it, because it's all technically just information that's running inside of it. Um, yeah.
Grid system is it appears to be very important, and I mean certainly there have been quite a few people that I've identified that grid system, and you mentioned some of their names as being kind of vital for understanding how energy flows and things operate on our planet. So private citizens, I mean, people listening to this interview, I mean, how do they play a role in cleansing and activating the planetary grid system? I mean, is it a matter of traveling to these different grid points and being part of spiritual exercises there, or do you just sort of kind of like meditate and send your consciousness there? How do people help cleanse and activate the planetary grid system? Because that seems to be pretty important for this birthing for this new Earth.
It's at the absolute most importance that we actually tune into this at this time. It's crucial for new Earth development, for indigo starseeds, lightworkers to get on board with this new evolutionary spiritual technology, because what it is, it's kind of like, you think about the ancient land shamans that walked the earth and talked about Turtle Island and talked about the great prophecies. This is just like the reincarnation of this. We are training to become avatar land shamanism. It's like avatar land shamanism, basically 2.0 new earth. And all of the grid work that we do as a spiritual community is building new earth. So, like you said, how do we work with it? Do we go to the sacred sites? Yes. Do we work with it inside our bodies emotionally, psychically, and telepathically? Yes. Do we do all of it sometimes simultaneously? Yes. There's many, many ways that you awaken to your grid worker type templating and what your mission is within that, because there's different roles within grid work as well. You can be all of them, and sometimes you can just be one. You could just be a Stargate activator or a Stargate encoder, where your role for some time is just to go from Stargate to Stargate to Stargate, taking information, seeding new information, opening up the Stargates or closing the Stargates, whatever it is. Sometimes your role is to be someone who is an extractor. You have a different contract. Your role is actually to extract negative energies out of the gate systems. You have to go and transmute it. I've done that role for a while, and it's a hard one. A lot of our Orion starseeds and Orion carnates, That is their role because they hold responsibility and accountability to the warfare that's going on in the Orion system and how that's negating the negative energies here on the planet. So their contracts will be to go to reversal sites, known reversal Stargate sites, Vatican, Rome, CERN, everywhere where there's major detriment to the planet, right? The particle accelerator is causing major damage here, which, by the way, is an Atlantean technology that's still running here on the planet as we speak. It's horrible technology. It's literally killing the land. It's killing all of the active living spirits in the land. It's killing all of the vortices. It's blocking all the passageways. It's running nuclear radiation into the ground. Toxicity. It's a mess. It's a mess. Have you ever been towards somebody who's just been through like a car accident? Like because I remember when I got in a car accident, I was like so shaken up. I totaled my vehicle a couple years ago. I couldn't even talk. Couldn't even talk. People were asking me questions and I was like, I couldn't even remember my name for a minute. That's what the land is like in Switzerland around CERN. It's traumatized land. So everything's dead. Spirits can't come through. Basically, if you are called to do that type of mission work, you're meant to go to these sites and aid the earth with what she's dealing with at these destruction sites. Extract the negative energies, extract the negative entities that are connected to this. Because basically, within these grids, we're swimming in satanic soup. It's all satanic forces and dark negative entities and agendas that are attached to that, right? So as a grid worker, you're going in and alleviating those attachments and basically removing and healing as much as you possibly can. Sometimes we're doing that individually and we have individual missions and assignments where you get like a download and your download's like, I mean, I get it all the time. Like, go down to the Star Fort, the Fort Pickens Star Fort, and go down there and clear something because there's negative, like military energy down there. We need to clear it. Sometimes it's an individual assignment. Sometimes you get called on big group assignments where you're going as a soul collective to actually move something much bigger, in which we have big events like that occurring on the planet right now. We have a big group on 8-8 Lionsgate that will be in Ireland at the Hill of Tara, and then we also have my group that's going down to Kauai, Hawaii in September. And we're going to be clearing the inner Earth gate site of all of the soul burdens inside of the planet, accessing the planetary war history, clearing that as much as possible, clearing all the betrayal wounds of consciousness between men and women, between tribal codes, between ancestors, everything that's basically occurred going all the way back to the Lemurian Holocaust. We'll be working on that. So some of us break off into different sectors. Like I said, we compartmentalize and we have missions that we uphold to try to stabilize the planet's grids. Because right now, we're being called to work within her grid templating to help support and aid. We have to do this right now. It's just a part of those of us that are being called. Like you've heard of the 144, the 144,000. This is kind of like these are the initiation codes to becoming a grid worker.
Now, you've mentioned the Earth's diamond architecture. So, is that you want to explain what that is and how that relates to the planetary grid system?
Well, yes, because these are very, very important because the diamond architecture holds the encodes to the ascended timelines and the ascended realms. This was what Andromeda brought. So remember we talked about that implosion that occurred where we separated from Andromeda? Well, Andromeda brought in these giant diamond discs and installed them in the planet. A lot of them got installed down in Antarctica. These are connected to the diamond caverns, okay, in Africa. Africa is kind of like the homeland of the diamond architecture. This is where the templating of the diamond Signusian templates are held, which unfortunately here on the planet we've mined all of these out. So there's a lot of war that's come against the diamond architecture and literally diamonds, like the refinement process of the planet. This is what refines Earth under pressure, right? We rebirth anew. But the diamond discs essentially were installed from Andromeda. This was a protective defense, spiritual defense system that was installed into the planet to protect us against planetary weapon systems, from pole shift occurrences and the detriments of this, from anything that happens like great floods and geological upheavals, anything that is basically to detonate and destroy humanity. The diamond disk architecture activates a defense system. It's kind of like the spiritual immune system of the planet. Multiple of these disks are running in different locations. So yeah, Antarctica, Africa, it's really heavy along the central vertical 0 point field of the planet. So everything that's kind of running down the Albion ley line, not just from the United Kingdom, but also like all the way down through Europe and down through Africa and down into uh, the South Pole. But it also expands horizontally as well. So one of the diamond discs, I do believe, is also running up underneath the Sphinx and also the Giza pyramids as well. And the diamond architecture links us into the feminine grid structures in the planet. So this will connect us into all of the mother arcing sites on the planet, all of the feminine oriented stargates, all of the fertility sites, all of the sacred birthing sites, all of the waterfalls, everywhere that there's like crystal caverns, rare gem and mineral crystal caverns. This all links into the diamond architecture. This culminates in the planetary diamond heart of the planet. So inside of the core of the planet is also a diamond. Okay, and that diamond is then connected to this outer structure. And this is really what repairs human DNA. It's the diamond, the 12th dimensional diamond architecture in the planet.
So, when we're talking about diamond architecture, we're really talking about sacred geometry here, and how does that relate to things like the tetrahedron, the star tetrahedron, and so yeah, is that what the diamond architecture fundamentally is based on? This kind of sacred geometry, because I know that the center of the Earth, I know that that's a lot of how that is operated, how that's predicated is on this sacred geometry.
Yeah, it's all working definitely within and through the geometry. It's all within schematics for sure. Light and sound and vibration and schematics of geometry. It's fluctuating. It's fluctuating. It's kind of it works within the Schumann resonance, the heart pulse of the planet, expansion and contraction. That geometry is constantly shifting and changing as well. I think it's all just levels and layers within the spiritual immune system that's occurring and shifting and changing and bringing the transformation within the planet. So yeah, in terms of the geometries, I mean, it connects many, many things. The geometry points are important, but they're also fluctuating. It's kind of one of those things that like it matters to, I think, bridge grid networks together. But then at the same time, it's hard to monitor because it's in a constant state of fluctuation.
Do you want to tell us about the J seals and the Draco seals? How does that relate to this planetary grid and this diamond architecture? I mean, are these attempts to kind of like prevent that from being accessed or activated?
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely. I mean, these were installed by the Dark Brotherhoods that basically came in. A lot of this came through biblical doctrine, at least with the J seals. It came in through the biblical doctrine. So, revelations, the trumpets, the seals, these were all placed through persecution and crucifixion wounding, like the actual crucifixion of Christ and the outward display of this, the play of this, so to speak, these events and the way that it was rewritten in the Council of Nicaea. And the Council of Nicaea was when they kind of took all of the biblical books and they altered a lot of things and shifted the perception and installed uh, the seal system. This also ties into that Orion galactic war history as well when we talk about planetary detonators and crystal generator blow up weapons and technology that came in at the fall of Atlantis that was implanted down the 70-degree west vertical ley line that runs through the North and the South Americas. This has a lot to do with the takeover of false alien gods like Yahweh and Jehovah and Metatron and all of these things. Like it's connected to hijacking of original intelligence grids such as what I would call the Dove grid or the Swan grid, like higher light fields of radial source intelligence. They placed caps on these things. They held them hijacked in countries, certain countries. They talk about this in the Book of Enoch. with JJ Hurtak. He talks about how the Dove grid was hijacked in Australia. Okay, originally, the Pleiadians brought in the original Dove grid, which this was the original Christed consciousness on the planet. The Pleiadians actually brought this in. Okay, this was held in Australia. They moved it to the United States, placed the J seals, pinned that in there. So it's basically held captive in the US. And this is why it's a part of the mission of the United States to be the ones that have to bear the torch. We're the torch bearers, basically, the Statue of Liberty. So we have to bring light to the world. We're also role models to the world in many ways because we are living with the first essence of the dove Christed consciousness as it manifests. Not that this isn't global and worldwide, but it has a lot to do with the United States and the emergence of this. We just did a grid activation to activate this energy. Anyways, the J seals are really pinned and held down here, and this has to do with persecution, wounding, crucifixion, Templars, reincarnation matrix, harvesting traps in the afterlife. It has to do with the body as well, blocking flow of feminine energy on the left side of the seventh tonal line of the body. That's a whole thing in itself that has to do with the force breeder programs of the Anunnaki. Now, with the Draco seals, this came in differently. Okay. This really came in during World War II. A lot of the Draco seals were placed during this timeline. Well, it goes back further than that because they have Vatican seals, monarchy seals, um, Vril seals, Thule seals. It has a lot to do with the Nazis. Okay. And the technology that they brought in through experimentation, abduction, um, a lot of the information that they got from the Rigel system as their informants came in, right? As they dealt directly with the Nordics and the Zetas and the Greys, they got a lot of this information and they placed planetary weapon systems in the planet. One of the major Draco seals is a nuclear detonator in the pole, in the North and South Pole. One of the Draco seals is that they can issue a controlled pole shift to occur. So whether this seal has been released or not, but this is a part of the weapon systems that they utilize. So unfortunately, they have but it doesn't mean those things are going to happen because they need this planet and they need the resources here. And they're going to fight to the death over the resources before they're going to go and detonate those weapon systems. Let's just put it that way. But it's there. It's holographic. It's in the planet, but it also translates to our bodies and what we inherited as we were bred through the hybridization programs and the forced trauma that was in place upon our inheritance. Okay, so we have to remove our J seals to release planetary enslavement. We have to remove our Draco seals to release planetary enslavement. A lot of the things that keep us binded to it. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that planetary weaponization system that you just mentioned that is part of, I guess, the Draco seals that we're talking about, and also the planetary pole shift. So, what you're saying, it sounds like these plans that are there in place, that these weapon systems can be activated to create an outcome that would perpetuate the hold of the Dark Brothers, or to prevent this awakening of the planet. I mean, purpose of this kind of planetary weaponization system.
To control humans. To control humans. Yeah. They don't want us to know that the solar system is basically already colonized. You know, we have brothers and sisters on Mars. We have brothers and sisters on Venus. There's a whole military system that's going in and out of the rings of Saturn as we speak. There's a full on we're a multiversal species. They don't want us to know this. So a lot of this is about keeping us here as a source of energy, as a source of food, as a source of war, as a place to play out their war, as a place to fight over the resources here on this planet. They don't want us to know things and they want to control the outcome. So, yeah, They want to use fear and domination and control tactics to keep us believing and building into that pot of collective vision and manifestation that continues to aggravate the war timelines to exist on this planet. It's all psychological warfare. It's all consciousness warfare. The war is over our consciousness. It's over our mind. And so that is solely the purpose for the weapon systems, and to annihilate us at will if they want to. I mean, use directed energy weapons on us. If they want to wipe out an entire city because they want to build their underground bases. I mean, we've seen what happened down in Maui last year on 8/8 on Lionsgate. And then what happens after that? You have Zuckerberg who goes down there and buys up all the land, and building the underground bases and things like this. So they don't. He's probably not even aware that he's dealing with Zeta control implants inside his own brain, forcing him to do and build these things and work in their behalf. He's probably not even aware, or maybe he is aware. I don't know. But it's kind of like they're utilizing us because they have an intellectual advantage upon humans here. But at the same time, it's not all negative gloom and doom. Like, yeah, this is the war of humanity. This is what we're all like waking up to realize, like how deep this wormhole goes. But at the same time, planetary ascension is according to our metagalactic core's ascension, our space-time location in our planetary and galactic cycles. Okay, so as our galaxy ascends, as our planet ascends, all of these war-minded race lines also receive upgrades. It's really about breaking through the carbon structures. The higher a reptilian body is, okay, in its levels, let's say Draco or Zeta or whatever, like the higher count of their reptilian quality, the more density and carbon that they have in their bone density and in the structures of their bodies and their cellular structure. So it's actually harder. They're more of a carbon based body. It's actually harder for it to break down, and it's harder for it to ascend in terms of the biospiritual evolution. But regardless of that, it's all in a time marker of evolution into the future, anyways. So, as much as we probably stress out about that dynamic, we don't have to. We actually don't have to, because the golden age will come whether the Dracos are ready for it or not. The golden age is going to come, and it will break down and dematerialize some of these weapon systems.
One of the things that I've run across from a number of people I've interviewed is that around 2021 there was an infusion of very highly evolved species into our solar system that parked around Jupiter, and that they are here to kind of like usher in a new era, and that a lot of the more negative regressive races like the Draco reptilians, the Orion Greys, that they left because all of a sudden the spotlight is on, and if you're doing dark things, you don't want to be seen by highly evolved souls. So they left, but what they left behind were the minions, and the minions are the ones that are currently doing all of this really dark stuff. But they don't have the same kind of intelligence or the same kind of kind of like dark spiritual network to be able to succeed. So many are saying that that we're just at the moment we're in this illusion of the darkness being in control of the planet, but that the minions or the predator class of humanity, they're on the verge of losing power, and that once that happens, then we can evolve very, very quickly into this kind of new earth. So you want to talk about that?
I mean, I agree with it. I agree that what I think has to happen is we as a humanity, we have to go deeper, which feels like we have to run away from what is perceived as the dark ones, like we have to run away from them, but really we have to like I think we need to go back into it. It's kind of like whenever you have a problem with something, right? Like the only way in is through. So we can't run away from the predatorial forces. We can't run away from the service to self beings. We can't run away from the wars. We can't turn our backs on the wars. We can't turn our back on everything that's happening because it's a representation of that. My hair is a little crazy. It's a representation of that. So we have to be willing to look at and address the issues head on. Um, the conflict really lies in the amnesia. The amnesia, right? The amnesia that we have to deal with here is because our lifespans are very limited here. And then when we come back, it's a process of remembering to awaken again. So we have to, sometimes it takes our whole life to get to that point, to do something about something. So we're working within limited means, but it's I have to think about. I think it's about us doing everything we can every time we're here. Fighting for it every time we're here, working towards it every time we're here. We are being assisted by the divine. We're being assisted by the guardians. The dark ones, they don't entirely rule this system, but it is very much in the thick of the battle of the duality of this consciousness matrix. Like our entire cosmos is a barred system. I mean, so this planet, these planets, the enslavement here, the drudgery, the toil here, it is a part of the journey and the process within this soul group. All believe it or not, everybody who carnated in every single race line, predatory or non-predatory, guardian or invader, we are all of the same soul group. So we won't leave here until we finish the work here together.
Now, something that you mentioned earlier was that this new Earth was, and I think you talked about thousands of years, but many people are expecting and hoping that this new Earth was going to appear, in the next decade, because the more regressive ETs have left, and once we've gotten over the hump of dealing with their former minions. Then we as a species will be kind of free to manifest something incredible. So yeah, can you address this timeline? I mean, many are expecting the new Earth to happen, say, by in the next few years, by the end of the decade, and what you mentioned earlier about several thousand years.
Mhm. Well, I know like in the next decade sounds lovely. Like it sure sounds like a dream come true, but I think it's more on a greater evolutionary cycle that it's going to be because we're at 2024. I mean, a lot of these greater changes, a lot of them initiated really in 2022. The Cygnus system has been activating and has bringing in, well, one of the most active systems in our cosmos is Cygnus. So there's a lot of gamma radiation and bursts that are coming in, light that's coming into this system from Cygnus, which is helping to rebuild and repair the indigo templates within the planet, and also anchor in the new Earth races, the seventh subrace, and things like this. Um, this is on a greater evolutionary cycle over into year 5,000, 7,000, and 12,000 common era that these things will occur because Earth is going through a great process of terra reformation. So, in order for this to occur, the planet's going to change again. It's not going to be it's not going to be this. And so, geological upheaval will continue to actually occur, but not in a way of devastation and full on destruction, just subtle changes, right? So we'll have new earth, new land that's going to actually rise up from the Pacific, from the Atlantic Ocean. We'll get new land. She's going to rebirth herself. Consciousness will rebirth itself. So, new seas, new waters. Water will also come into the land, and places that are here now will no longer be here. So things are going to change. There's going to be great migrations that will occur. Within that, the spiritual prophecies will also play out. Biblical revelation plays things in a negative way. Biblical revelations is a program to basically put us in Armageddon codes and self destruction codes. That's what it basically wants. It was implanted by the Zetas. This is what I think. Okay. So, regardless if there are prophets that came forth to teach us the word of God, which I do feel like there's truth in that. I do feel like the programming was intercepted at certain points where they tainted things. Okay. Council of Nicaea, I spoke about those things. So we're in a constant state of biblical revelations, destruction, death, and rebirth, destruction, death, and rebirth, and all the signs that prevail that to us all the time. That's always happening. That's in the artificial and fallen matrix that occurs. That's not the new earth timeline. The new earth timeline is according to like it's according to like Venusian prophecy. The Venusian New Earth templating that comes through the Venusian temples, that comes through the inner Earth gate vortices, that's rebuilding the lattice of layer through the grid work technology that we're all doing on the Earth, whether we participated in or not, it's still occurring. It's going to activate those diamond architecture. It's going to activate the solar sun disks in the planet. It's going to activate the golden light cities, which will activate the cathedrals of learning, because what New Earth will bring forward is education. We have to re educate the whole human species. We have to re educate the seventh subrace into their psychic and spiritual abilities, because we will become less physical based in the future. Everything will be stronger in heightened levels of telepathy. Everything will be the conscious knowledge that we create the new earth according to our thoughts, because everything will become mind again. It will become very mental. So that's way for that's everything's going to change. Basically, the cities that you see now, the architecture of these cities will change. The formation of the Masonic templating has to go. Washington D.C. will be reformed. Okay, Masonic structures will no longer exist in our streets and buildings and the way things are lined out. Things will start to be built again in the way they actually were built in Atlantis. They actually were onto something in Atlantis. If you look at that picture you had of Atlantis and you've seen that architecture that you had there, that's a star civilization. That's things built in according to those geometries and the diamond architecture and the new earth architecture of a star civilization, which is where we're actually in tune to the consciousness of the celestial and the angelic realms that are anchoring us to build our civilizational structures according to galactic and celestial law versus the limitations of universal law. So, as that embeds itself into the psychic body of the planet, and we start building and terra reforming from the inside out, that consciousness can happen. You can see how this can't happen over the next 10 years.
Let's address something that is very common in the patriot community, at least in the United States, where people that are aligned with maybe those kind of more patriotic ideals, that they see things in terms of these predictions of a transition from one where uh, the darkness or the kind of like the manipulator or the predator class, their days come to an end, and they describe the 10 days of darkness kind of like a dark night of the soul, where things get very very dark, and we kind of seem to be heading into that. And then on the other side of that, there'll be this kind of like, they call it the great awakening. People will awaken to the oppression, the kind of child exploitation, the manipulation of politicians, the kind of corruption, stolen elections. All of these sort of things will get exposed after a kind of 10 days of darkness. Now, I thought that was very interesting, because you're talking about 3 days of light, the coming 3 days of light. So I just wanted to get you to maybe reflect on what you're talking about, and maybe compare that to what the patriot community are hoping will happen in the United States. And I think many in Europe are hoping the same there too. And I think other places like Australia, there is also a hope that something like this will happen.
Well, yeah, the 10 days of darkness sounds brutal. I'll tell you what. I really don't want to go that way. We could go a different way. Um, you know, light does prevail from the deepest, darkest place. So, I mean, if we have to go through a 10 days of darkness, so be it. Like, I know we're going to get on the other side of that. But I've been talking about something called the 3 days of light. It's a prediction. It's a prophecy prediction, something that I've been seeing since 2022. It's kind of like a solar flare, like a grand solar flare, like that would occur, right? Where we have all the light that penetrates, and we have like rapid transformation, but this is a little different. What I was seeing is that we get so much radiation and gamma burst of light that is coming from the Cygnus system. I seen this coming from Cygnus, so within the nano diamonds of the Milky Way itself, where it has a star explode. I don't know if it's going to be Alpha Cygnus or which one it's going to be in Cygnus specifically, but that it's going to birth a star basically, and that's going to bring the light waves here. And actually, Alex Collier talks about this. So just to kind of back like what I'm saying up a little bit, he's talked about all of the blast waves that are currently coming from Cygnus at this time. But bringing in mass amounts of light, okay, that would basically re-kick or restart a Genesis. So in the Bible in Genesis, I think it was like 6 or 7 days of light. This would be like a miniature Genesis that would occur. In the 3 days of light, a lot of things would happen because we would just be in a constant state of light. Like there would be no nighttime, there would be no darkness. So within the light, we would have a second creation where humankind has the opportunity to embody the attributes of God, okay, the virtues of God, the all of the like qualities that we should be striving to embody and achieve within ourselves. So basically, that will come in and it will create a light templating reconstruction within our body and also within the planet, and then higher levels of illumination within the firmament. Um, Light will also, because there'll be no darkness, right? We won't have nighttime. So basically, there's so much light around the sun and around us that like dark will not happen. So that's going to allow light to come into the deepest, darkest spaces on the planet, which is where all of the negative energy is technically stuck in terms of the grids of the planet. So we talk about like, where's all the World War II codes held? Where is all of the trauma and all the buildup and all the miasma and all of the shame and guilt codes, like everything humanity has a hard time transcending? We enter into those descension cycles. Well, guess what? It's held in the Grand Canyon. It's held in the Mariana Trench. It's held in the fissures in the the pits in the fissures. There's a great Atlantic ridge that runs along the bottom of the ocean, and all of that is stuck there. So all of that light that comes in is going to reach into those deep dark places, and it's going to bring light into where the deepest darkest, energy lives in the planet. It will bring forth a massive collective awakening of the fourth eye. Okay, all of our ocular systems will come online. The eyes and the heart, the veils and the deceptive lenses we carry within our ocular of our eyes and our brain systems, all those deceptive lenses will be annihilated basically and dissolved in light. Our third eye will awaken, and then there will be a higher, fourth dimensional soul eye that awakens. So we will all be activated to a 22nd dimensional chakra system. We'll have clearings of all of the stuff that just doesn't serve. The plagues, the apocalypse, the revelations, trumpets, the seals, all of that will be going. Negative ego will be going. The planetary pain body will be going. All division, all duality will be removed for 3 whole days. So we will get like fresh perspective about what our existence is about. And so they say that it could be at the time that we have a coming of a third Messiah. Okay, I don't like to like promote that one so much because I feel like it can tie us back into like the Hebraic and genetic distortions of those things. But there is a potential. But I feel that a coming of a third Messiah would be feminine. It would be a feminine versus masculine. Kings, leaders, ministers, presidents, they're going to make peace with each other. This will be a time of peace. So the olive branch codes will activate across the globe. Our youth will be restored. So restoration of youthful appearances. um, People will have more harmonious and peaceful deaths. So if soul collectives are choosing to exit at that time, they will exit in a peaceful way. Um, all the unification between bloodline wars will heal. So anything within the hybridization traumas, that's basically what we're seeing in all of the wars. Okay, what came against with the SS and Himmler and Hitler versus the Jews and all of this, like, that's a bloodline war. That's an experimentation. There will be unity. Those codes will heal and clear. Um, so yeah, there's a lot that will occur, a lot that's gonna come from that I've envisioned anyways in terms of what I've seen. Um, that it will bring things changing in a positive way.
It's not going to happen in a short number of years. It's going to take quite some time, but definitely the days of the darkness, their time is very limited. So you want to tell us about your book, How to Read Celestial Akashic Starseed Origins, and where people can get it?
Sure, thank you. Um, so it's a methodology book to try to figure out your starseed origins. Basically, I decoded a way of doing it that worked really good for me according to my ancient inheritance of the motherlands of Mu, which really guided me to work within the lunar degree markers for starseed origin. So I pull that in and teach people how to basically do that yourself. So it's a great methodology book to use. Now, there are different ways of doing this. Some people channel this, some people use astrology. I like to use astrology for it, so that's why I wrote this book. I was on the journey of figuring out my own starseed origins when I found this, and I wanted to find it my own way, right? Like it had to make sense to me. So I studied astrology, I studied the lunar nakshatras, I studied Western and Eastern astrology, and I kind of found a way to merge and marry those systems a little bit to find your origin. And yeah, this is just one of like other books that I hope to have coming. I'm hoping next to write a grid worker manual for people to do grid work. So that's what I'm working on next. I do offer courses for that though. So if people want to learn how to do grid work, I have a grid work facilitator 1 and a grid work facilitator 2 course. I do regular remote sessions like we have on 8/8. We're working on Germany and the World War II land codes there. Anyone of any, they could be a beginner grid worker all the way to an advanced. I do the facilitation, so I do it in a way that I allow everybody to kind of technically participate. If you want to participate, if you don't want to participate, that's okay too. You just let me know. But we do that all the way to boots on the ground mission work as well. So this book, you can actually get this on Amazon. You can get this book there, or I have a link on my website for this at indigoangel222.com. I also have services there as well where I do J seal removal and Draco seal removal. I do female and male implant removal as well, and 13-dimensional chakra clearings. And but the bulk of my work now is teaching. Like I love to teach, so I do more coursework. And that's at learn.indigoangel222.com is where you can find my teachings.
Well, definitely let me know when you've finished your book on the grid work, because I think that's a very important topic, and I think it's something that people need to know more about. I think clearing the grid and knowing more about it is vital. So I recommend people take a look at Indigo's courses on clearing the grids, and go to her website, indigoangel222.com. It's been fascinating hearing you, Indigo, meeting you. I think you really have some excellent information for people to contemplate and dive deep. And as you say, you've got to go do the inner work for the outer changes to happen. So I really encourage people to explore Indigo's work. So thank you, Indigo, for being on Exopolitics Today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a joy and such a blessing, and I appreciate you so much. And thank you, and thank you everyone for watching.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.